Welcome, faraway friends. You have found yourself once more at Darkeport. Today we are in conversation with Corey. Hello, Corey.
Hey guys, it's great to be here and looking forward to this.
I'm glad we were finally able to do this post Gen Con.
Gen Con was it was really good. A lot of things.
It was. There was I can't complain of boredom, I'll tell you that. There was a lot going on. I feel like your Gen Con experience was different than my Gen Con experience.
Very different.
Yeah,
Yours was in the moment, in these sessions, doing one-shots. Mine was networking, talking to various, tabletop games about potentially putting their show on our channel and doing live play versions of that and help them
really cool.
help kind of co-market and do things together and help them blow up. So yeah, on top of a lot of other things, looking for terrain and all sorts of things that our GM demands.
I'm sorry that I did not get to look at the stuff that you had pointed out. So it didn't happen even on the day where we were trying to go out and get to the airport early for all kinds of reasons.
Well, the good news is I have photos of it.
Yeah.
I have websites, and we can do that kind of post.
It's not like back in the day, which I will circle back around to at the end of this interview. It's not like
back in the day.
It's not like back in the day where, boy, if you saw something and you let it go by, you may never find it again. That was it.
There were some pressure salesmen like, half off right now at Gen Con because we don't want to take it home.
I'd never been to Gen Con before, but my guardian, essentially my mother, but my guardian was the I think you know this, was the vice president for marketing of Steve Jackson Games. Yeah. So I got to see like a lot of, I can buy it honest, I got to see, I was kind of immersed in that world.
The gamer universe from a little toddler.
Pretty early age, that my older brother. All right. Well, I have a few queries for you, my dear.
Okay.
So I want to start out with a version of a question that I've asked everyone, which is, what space does gaming occupy in your life?
Ooh.
However you want to answer that.
It is right now a big outlet for my creativity.
Sure.
I did a lot of theater when I was younger, and so this helps with that. Exploratory, being able to explore themes and story and different aspects that I normally wouldn't get a chance to. Communal, hanging out with friends and doing something collaborative together is a big deal with me. So it really is tribal in that sense. And I like all sorts of gaming. I like everything from board gaming.
Yeah, you do.
To chess,
obviously.
To poker.
Yeah.
To live action role playing. To this. So that's a big piece. It's a big creative outlet, and I like to explore different aspects of a character and theme through that process. And when I was at my LARPing days, it was very big to be able to do things, even some things that you would not be able to do in real life because it could potentially be a little edgy.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be doing these sort of things in real life.
It's funny you should say that, Corey. So I'm reading a book right now titled 1632, like the year. It was written in 2000. It's a really nice time slip book where you have a group of West Virginians from a whole town from West Virginia from 2000 that gets kicked back to 1632. And there are some passages in that book where I'm like, ooh, I don't know if you could write that today. I don't know if that get published today. It's well written, but things have changed.
No, and there were things with Merrick, maybe it'll come up a little later, that I'm in the process of and have already experienced through some prologues that I didn't even imagine I would actually role play through. So those gave me some really interesting insights, and even how we're role playing out Merrick's PTSD now and those aspects and the frustration. And Corey's feeling some of that as well.
Sure.
And I'm dealing with it's fine, but
sure.
The fact is how to balance all of that.
No, it's not easy, and I front-loaded a lot of these questions about Merrick. Obviously, you have a dual role with Darkeport, and I want to address both of those, but I want to make sure that we have the time and the space and the grace to really talk about your experience as a player, because it's easy to get it's easy for the business side of things to just kind of take over. Not just for you, for myself as well. Obviously for Justin, who is part of our long-running sit-down group and is now our head producer. Like that. It's easy for business stuff to get, to get it to
up front and center.
To be exactly to kind of take the oxygen. So, you have a unique perspective amongst the entire table, which you may not have thought about. Which is to say, you were the only person playing at this table that also played at the long-running home games.
Currently.
Soon.
To change.
But as of this recording, you were the only player character.
Correct.
Player with the player character. So I wanted to ask, what is the same and what's different?
Ooh.
And I know that's a very broad one, and you can answer that in 50 different ways, but I really am honestly curious to see what your answer is about that.
I mean, the urgency to get going and end obviously is different.
It's hard.
There's not the walk in and we can start whenever roughly we feel like we're done having the catch up social type of stuff.
Kibitz for half an hour with each other.
Right? Or ish, right? Yeah. Exactly. We're not sitting on a floor. Angels,
no.
Infamous.
No,
I was forcing everyone to sit in a circle on a floor to stay grounded and to
be able to see everyone
and to be able to interact, and even how he positioned you and all these sort of things. All of the ones I played with, I knew beforehand.
That's true too.
And so
some of them pretty well.
Yeah, some of them really well. Some of them, maybe 6 months, a year, but they were all friends already, and then we figured out how to bring them into a campaign or a game and play with them. So those are some interesting aspects. Another thing is
it does change the dynamic, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big piece of it, and just the game world. Obviously, we were playing old school D&D, so very different there.
Very different feel. Yeah.
And that has its pluses and minuses and makes it very easy to be more mind's eye theater focused. Someone I talked to recently actually said, well, what is your ratio between combat and mind's eye? And I gave him a ratio. And because we come from a LARPing background, mind's eye is a big piece of what we like to do.
A lot of it was, yeah.
Although, as you know and recall, we didn't role play as much in the homebrew, at least some of the campaigns. There were some, actually, the one with that we did with Russ and Sarah Jane was pretty good in terms of role play with our good friend Guy.
Steps away since then.
Yeah. But we had role play, but it's not as intense as you do with a show where
you don't think so. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just that's an interesting perspective. Tell me about that.
We're on roleplay wise a good majority of the time, obviously on the stream. There was a lot more. It was actually a little bit more Critical Role-ish, to be honest, in that sense, where we were cracking up a little out of character. Ironically,
yeah.
We had serious moments, but
no, we did cut up a fair bit. I would say, because it wasn't just D&D. Obviously, we hopped around quite a bit, depending on who could make it and who was available and whatnot. I would say that Star Wars mini campaign was pretty intense.
It was, but
roleplay wise, and that was the one just prior.
Let me give you your range.
Darkeport.
In LARP, you're always in character unless you go to the out of character area. You're always
constantly
always in, and then a bad D&D group. So what I'm saying is we did role play, but we also stepped out to the out of character room, which was virtual,
right,
more often than you would like in a LARP.
I see what you mean, like the ratio of it.
And LARP stands for live action role playing. If those don't know that acronym,
where you're actually embodying the character.
You're embodying the character. You're dressed up. You're role playing. You're interacting. They have some
walking around. Yeah.
And the Nordic LARPs are infamous for 2 days in an ancient castle where you're actually role playing a character. So it's really pretty cool stuff.
I have not done it, but that'll come to me in a second. The zombie LARP. It's been around for a hot minute now.
Oh my! I'm not even sure if it's still around though.
I'm pretty sure it is. That name will come to me. But that one was very close to the Nordic LARPs, where you would actually sleep.
Spend the weekend. Yeah.
It was totally immersive. Okay, no, I see what you mean though by the ratio. Okay.
It's more of the constantness of being in character or not.
Yeah. What impact do you think that has? How does that change it from the homebrew?
So in homebrew, you can explore things and really delve into that and be able to explore that, and you're sort of doing it for your own kind of curiosity. In the live stream, we have a theme, we have certain aspects we're exploring, but we also need to make sure we communicate it effectively and efficiently to the audience. So we can't diddle-daddle around on exploring a certain theme at length that may not work well on stream. Like you could have literally an hour love scene potentially, you just
remind me of something, but yeah, go ahead and finish.
And then on stream though, you kind of condense that down into the critical key moments, and you sort of either fade to black or you mention things, and it's kind of a Hitchcock sort of aspect to it. And it doesn't have to be love; it could be anything from that to planning. The big one we're struggling now is like we're supposed to defend against this big bad army coming our way from Leptis region at some point, we think, or unless we negotiate our way out of that.
Right.
And so the question is we're not going to role play out the battling plan. We're going to do some aspects of planning for that, but we can't do, the days that we might do.
We're not, and you're not going to have a 3-hour long, I've made reference to this before on stream, we're not going to have a 3-hour long debate. Probably you're going to condense it down. That, Corey, like absolutely, I'm still not completely, that's a work in progress for me.
Yeah.
To get that ratio. One thing I was going to say that I've noticed, and I want to see if it's the same for you as a player, I was much more willing as a GM, if I was on a roll with a player or 2 players out of like 6 or 7 that were playing, of just like running that scene with them, because I knew everybody else could entertain themselves.
Right.
They could just get up, they would chat, they would eat, they would, wander around, like, because we're all at our homes. So we're doing our thing. Obviously, you cannot indulge something like that. You can't just shut down the rest of the table and go on one person.
No, especially when you have a 2-hour, 2.5 hour, window
of actually playing during actual play. Yeah, it's like,
and you may miss some really critical moments that would otherwise would have come out of that. If literally if we just filmed that separately, like if we were not doing this live and we just filmed it and then we edited it, there may be some moments out of that, if you let it keep going, that would have come out of that would be really nice to have.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because we're but the way we're doing things right now, we are live streaming and we have a window, and so we have to cut those things short to be able to move things along.
I will say there are times, and maybe this is because I'm maturing as an actual play GM, where I feel I am starting to find the strength of it and the advantage of it, where it kind of lights a fire under me.
Right.
And it gets my pacing up, and it keeps the energy, it keeps the flow. I mean, how many times on the pregame ritual have I because we all, say what we really want to bring that day, and flow is a huge thing for me. I feel like my flow is improved.
Oh, absolutely. I think the dynamics of the group,
because you just can't indulge yourself the way that you could in a 6-hour long, 5-hour long, game or whatever.
No, you can't fall down in the chair and throw up your feet and laugh.
Right.
At something that I do or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, exactly. So those are a lot of the differences. What has remained the same? What are the connective tissue?
I think the depth of the world, because you've made the depth of the world very consistent, and whether homebrew or otherwise, it's been very deep, and it may even become more deep, to be honest. Because
I'm not done.
We know you're infamous
at all.
Yeah. I've played with him for 7-year campaign, and we still didn't finish.
We're about halfway through. Yeah.
And I'm like, are we ever going to actually get a campaign done with you that we actually finish?
There was this little thing that happened that kind of impacted the whole globe in there, but I take your point.
That, I think the ability to just interact and role play with people are still the same. I think in some ways even more so. Like I said, people are really invested. I think they were invested in the character in the homebrew too, but you get to see that as well here.
Everybody shows up.
Everyone shows up.
Everybody shows up here. Yeah.
You get the dice rolls, you know. You got the different dice rolls, and some people roll bad, some people roll better. Some people have, you know, certain things and rituals they want to do. Beforehand, afterhand, those are all similar. And I think the themes and stories we're exploring are still the same. In them for the most part. It's just that we're doing it not only for ourselves, like we do in homebrew, but also for the audience to also take part of.
It's a performance. I mean, part of it is a performance. It's not performative, but it is an art. Like it is a living art performance that you're giving.
It is
on top of just kind of having the hobby. The last thing I'll say to that is understanding and having it click for me. The way that it clicked for me, Corey, after running a LARP for a while, because I ran the one LARP for a bit. That's actually how you and I met. Although I was already well into that experience when we met, was having it click for me that a LARP wasn't a sit-down game with some costumes and walking around. A LARP was a social event that happened to have some rules. Like that was a big shift for me. In the same way, it was like there's this whole other factor that goes into running. I'm pointing over here because that's where the jam screen is, and that's where I normally sit. Which is being a host. Like I'm a GM, but I'm also hosting the audience. It's different.
And also some of
it's different.
The more experienced players are also hosting and mentoring the younger, newer players as they come into, making sure they get involved. So it's a whole different concept as far as the LARPing component goes. And even a new player that you invite to your D&D game, someone's helping them out and giving them space to hopefully shine and kind of gel with our game.
I do, I do miss, that's one thing that I miss in a studio where everyone has to be disciplined. You have to be on mic. The lighting has to be correct. We're blessed, by the talent, the talent and the dedication that we have back at the house. No question. I just miss being able to like spur of the moment, being able to call somebody up and like, hey, do you want to come in? Do you want to because there are a lot of considerations. It's not just, do you feel like gaming that day?
No. There's a slow
of consideration,
technical and asset, and all the different assets and photos and character things that you need to have to make the full production work. Where if it's just a sit down game, it's just bring your character sheet or I'll make one up for you real quick on the way over.
You don't even need one, right? You
don't even need one. Just show up.
Exactly. and we'll have something to do. We covered some of this already, but I also wanted to ask. What were some of your expectations? So we've been at this for over a year and a half now, actually, even though streaming, we're about to hit a year, but we were already role-playing with these characters months before.
Like in March, I think, starting March.
Before, I believe it. Yeah, I think it was right around March of 2023. So at that, roughly...
I think the line was, let the prologues begin. I recently saw that.
I want to just keep going back as far as we have, video eventually. I don't know. We'll see.
We have some audio.
We do even before the video. That'd be rough.
There's that one scene I have that's pretty rough scene. Very good because Donnie played that.
Oh, Donnie was perfect as the villain. We always knew he had a little infamy in him.
He might inform people where my mental state went after all that.
But what? So let's say from you, March 2023, you're starting Merrick. What were your expectations at that time? And then how closely did those align with what wound up happening? And again, you can answer this however you want.
You threw me for there was definitely some curves and everything that happened.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna have happy ranger spells and glory, and then maybe it was my choice, and maybe there were some other alternatives, but I went down the Mistress of the Bloody Soil route for a bit, and now he's trying to figure out. But that's what would happen with a person who is shaken. And so early Merrick, I had the survival nature. Matter of fact, when we were doing our nature thing, I initially was going to be a survivor, but then by the time we got to that, I was like, no, fanatic to the dream as a whole seemed better, so that's what I chose. And potentially now I'm thinking a little bit more different as my mindset is around what Merrick's really focused on, and I won't reveal that. But I've talked a little bit about that sort of potential migration. Merrick was basically a special ops sort of concept for the military. I didn't understand all the different dynamics of the different characters.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean,
and just like you do in LARP, otherwise, it takes about 6 months, at least for me and most people, to really fully bloom into their character and start to understand all the different complexities and concepts.
And there are also the relationships that you have to build up with the other.
And the different relationships. And also, early on, I didn't have the prologues either. I didn't even have my scene in the kitchen at that point. It was earlier stuff. It was some flashback stuff.
To give context, you mean the scene in Pollux when you're a captive,
correct,
in the kitchen? Okay, because you and I know what happened there, but that has not been released.
Yes, I mean we role played. Was it 2740 when Julius went down and that whole big raid scene
as a group,
as a group,
and
that helped inform.
Big one, yeah.
And some of the concepts kind of organically came about, really understanding the poly-esque aspect of the Kithki once we got the relationships and kind of understood the family dynamic there. Understanding Merrick's mindset post with some of the things that happened post that trauma was super important, and what happened there, because early on it was like I was kind of like a let's free the slaves, sort of rebellion, and kind of had a little kid group going on. And then I met reality. And
although that impulse is still very strong in him about being an abolitionist.
Oh, absolutely. But he's got a little wisdom of those 30-some years since then.
It's matured. I was actually asking what were your expectations as a player, but we're just diving right into the character.
As far as a player goes. So one of the challenges I've had, especially early on when I was also working at my I wasn't called a corporate job, but my startup, startup I was part of, was balancing that versus all the effort it took to get the studio built out, the company done, all the things that I need to do behind the scenes, and trying to figure out how I can. Because when I dive into characters, I really like to spend a lot of time thinking about their mindset, their theme, and I didn't have a lot of time early on to start exploring that. And it was kind of like,
no, you didn't.
I was kind of drinking from the fire hose and feed me some of that. And I felt a little guilty because I really do like to have certain set mindsets that I want to explore and make sure. And I didn't have as much of a chance to do that early on. And as we've progressed, I've had more time to think about a lot of stuff and really, and then the snowball with, like I said, that you've been throwing at me regarding kind of my conflict of religion and faith. And how all that's playing out.
One of the, I said this last night on the live stream, one of the themes that has emerged that I did not set out with, so we set out with sacrifice and the indomitability of the human spirit, but one of the themes that has emerged pretty clearly and strongly with almost all of the characters now is the importance of self-knowledge.
Absolutely.
That has really... And
know thy own self as well, yeah.
And that has really come up again and again. I mean, to some extent, looking back, it's always present in all of my campaigns, but in this campaign in particular, man, it's been like critical. For good and for bad. I mean, but it's been like it. So to your point of getting into Merrick's mindset and understanding, his really like I people usually joke when they use this term, Corey, but like truly like an existential crisis. Just who am I? What am I?
And trying to embody that and doing the research and trying to figure out that mindset and trying to, when, Heath Ledger and the Joker, he literally lived that and to where it's kind of scary.
A little too much. Yeah.
And so when you do method acting and trying to get in that mindset, it's hard. Getting back to the actual Corey side, one of the things that was surprising and a challenge for us is how much I'm used to helping coordinate the logistics and managing things, but we realized pretty soon that I, as a player, cannot be involved with some logistics because it would spoil, the surprise and just really, literally what's going to play out down the line. I didn't want to have that intimate knowledge.
It's hard. No, that was to our earlier point about like all the things that have to happen to make the actual play possible, it has been sometimes just excruciating to try to like compartmentalize all these different things and have all these like some absurd amount of Slack groups and Discord groups and all this, and like, okay, Toby's like my assistant GM at this point, but now we're transitioning to a player, and Corey's like not just our CEO, but also our frickin' carpenter, because you built the studio, like literally built the studio.
There are about 20 big hats, and I've had about half of them. And so at the time, at one point in time, and at less, but yes, the studio.
Like I can't tell you. No, I mean, but there are a lot of things where I'm like, nope, you can't know that, and so I just have to figure out like how to make that work. The whole like mini supply chain, which honestly I think we've done a pretty good job with, all told, but
exactly.
that was rough at the beginning.
So one of my aspects and hats was to go find individuals that could help us, with the production. So I would find them, we would interview them, and then I would hand them off to Angel or Justin because I can't be involved in the secret discussions, behind the scenes stuff. And that's just kind of the method that happened. And sometimes I had to be involved a little early on some stuff, but we eventually got, Toby in this case, or Melissa, to be able to really help and step up to the plate. I'm so thankful,
so lucky, and so grateful. For everybody who stepped up when they.
And that's another surprise.
They didn't have to.
Just the team, the troupe, and the people we found, and just.
Well, Gen Con, like those scenarios that I wanted to run, and having those beautiful Eldritch Foundry minis like actualized and painted, that literally was not going to happen if Melissa wasn't a painting fiend and dedicated a huge amount of her time and effort. 3 nights basically. I was over there the week before Gen Con.
And we met her at Precision Camera when I went to look at cameras.
Yep.
And she's our first fan, and now she actually is part of Darkeport. And even with Steve, just
our music director.
Our music director, Steve Gurness. Finding him and then just what he's able to do, that was just a blessing, because I was told, hey, we want music during the stream. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go find some Elder Scrolls. There's some clips with the licensing aspects around this. And then I'm like, maybe I can find an actual music composer that wants to be part of this. And we got lucky and found him. I mean,
we got spectacularly lucky. Yeah. All right, so those are some of the hardest parts. I had fourth question was hardest parts of playing Merrick, trying to get into the mentality, trying to do your research, also the real life difficulty of balancing all these different roles as player, and also trying to make the wheels on the bus turn, the wheels on the project turn. What are some of the best parts of playing Merrick? Which was my third question.
Yeah, Merrick underneath is super caring. He has a heart of gold underneath. That's a piece that's really good to explore. Is that aspect underneath the undertone intentions are he's doing what he thinks is best for everyone, even to the fact he's in some cases disobeying orders because he thinks Titus is being a fool or whatnot. And we can go to debate on what orders is and what a point in time those are, but.
And like how rarely you get to show that as a player.
Yeah, I mean, with Jasmine, there's a little evolving story with is it Tulia, the other old power that's Tella, that's in here. I think there's gonna be some really interesting things around that. I mean, he was asked to marry someone else, and that still may happen. And in the Kithki culture, you can have multiple husbands and multiple wives, but there's just a different. And what I'm really wanting to explore, and I think it'll be really great, is just showing the different relationships that I have with like Tola versus Jasmine versus.
That will be really interesting. Tola is interesting too because she has the old power as well. So it's two physical equals dealing with it's
like finding a martial arts partner that understands your discipline and can really appreciate things, and a different relationship than say your lover or whatever the case may be.
Your brilliant engineer wife. Yes.
Yeah.
So the caring. What else? Like what gets you excited when you're sitting down to play this character, or you're thinking about this character because I know you do in between sessions.
I am really interested in exploring how he is going to work his way through, and I even Corey has no idea where America's going to end up. Is he going to go down a black spiralness and become, more revengeful, or is he going to try to get to more of a balance, or more towards finding peace within himself and being able to channel that? And right now he's working towards that, but if something could literally happen to a group, someone could die, and it could literally trigger him to just totally just change his mindset. So it's a very fragile mindset in terms of his balance of his faith and where he fits into. It's almost like Titus, kind of the mirror of Titus, in a way where Titus could be a monster, or he could be a defender, and he's luckily,
and both are true.
Yeah,
I mean, both exist within him. Yes. Yes, I'm really glad we got that prologue episode out, because it had that incredible scene between Titus and Katrin and Merrick, where he was really grieving what he had done to the slaver leader. I mean, he'd beaten him in gruesome fashion, and beaten him to death. Titus had.
Yep.
And that showed the different faces of the character.
Another challenge with Merrick right now, in and out character, but mostly, just trying to figure this out, is he was a mentor and kind of a protector of Titus when he was little. And so that relationship was because he worked for his father, grandfather.
His whole life, yeah.
And so just even real life where you have a young 20-year-old, kind of now your boss, and how that relationship works. And how that relationship works, by the way, in the setting of that environment versus as a coterie. And we still are exploring how we all play together as a coterie, because
Party.
Party.
Coterie is what it's called in
Vampire.
Yeah.
Our fellowship.
Yeah, fellowship.
And so whether or not someone's, whether it's Wesa not running and saying, no, I'm protecting you because she has strong feelings for Titus in that way, to Merrick, in some cases, right or wrong, disobeying Titus because of his beliefs and or what he thinks is foolish with Titus. So it's a challenge. We'll figure out how we work through that process.
Yeah, and to that point, there are multiple layers of structure and of context that go over the fellowship, because you have, like you said, you have a patrician in the group. That's one. All of you are chosen. In your case, a little bit slight variation, but basically all chosen.
Right.
That's another layer that you can put on there. There are also, different generations that go on. Because you have your character's the oldest at 48. Marcus, though, relative to a human's lifespan, is basically where you're at. Maybe slightly younger, but still a full man. You have people who are just coming into their own. You have Nalishli, who really doesn't fit into any. She's both and neither.
I was about to say I'm the only non-human, but that's not true with Nalishli.
Yeah.
But I am. I don't know what to say. But at one point, I was. These are all Dirathi. I don't know what the Kithki version of Nalishli is.
Right.
And what we call that, and the Kithki mental.
There'll probably be some interesting discussion about that, but it's just it's looking at when I'm watching the table interact and I'm watching the characters interact with each other, I'm seeing all of these different layers to them, and I'm seeing all of these different structures that are superimposed on them, and sometimes you have more of a military feel, sometimes you have more of a civilian kind of administrator like advisor to noble feel. Sometimes you do have these mentor moments that go back and forth. I mean,
right.
Sometimes you have more spiritual heavy moments, spirit driven moments, and so it's that really changes. That can really change moment to moment depending on what's ascendant in that particular scene.
No, it's true.
And it's complex. That's not always easy to figure out what is correct.
And how do we operate as a fellowship, as a party? And so one of Merrick's frustrations right now in character is getting them to militarily operate more efficiently. And we'll see how that plays out.
Tactically.
Yeah. And just kind of how we all understand how to operate as a group in a lot of situations.
So my last kind of campaign-specific question for you, Corey, that I have written down anyway, I'm sure we can find others, is what would you most like to explore in this campaign that we haven't yet?
You're reading my mind. The Kithki culture as a whole I would like to understand. I think it'd be. We have not had enough chance to really kind of demonstrate. We touched on it, but they're half the city, and we haven't had enough chance to. I mean, we've had some scenes, in the healing hall and things of that nature. But even what's going on with Granny Touchdem and that whole thing playing out right now, I'm looking forward to the Shireborn and how they play out and the differences and how they're going to deal with the more militaristic version we have.
They just got there when,
and they don't want to support anyone but the Githki right now. They're now maybe things have changed a little bit. I don't know, but
see how persuasive Livia is.
And then maybe it's only certain situations, and then maybe they're learning. But I think that's a big aspect that I want to explore. Another piece that
can write that down.
I mean, that's a big one.
No, I agree with you, and that's unfortunately like to our earlier points about that's been like a casualty of having 2 hours to 20 minutes of play, because sure as the sun rises in the east, what I would have done with that in the home game.
Because most of the PCs are not Githki, so you're getting some exposure to whether it's Olivia or.
But they are half the city.
They are half the city, exactly.
And again, like in the home game, if that was the setup, I could have had a 2 hour scene of dinner with Granny, or I could have had the hour scene of whoever the healer character is in that group gets called in to help with delivering a baby or whatever. I mean, like, and then you could see how that operates in a non-crisis situation, and why these characters, who are not just short humans,
right?
They're not. They are fundamentally different. Even mechanically, like rules-wise, they're different. Like they literally have advantage on fear rolls, so they're incredibly brave. Like maybe stupidly brave by human standards, but like they're as a species, they're incredibly brave. That changes, like that changes a lot. Just all of that stuff. Many of them can feel the mother in a way that humans cannot feel Quaelathon.
Yeah, it's almost like Avatar, where
there's some of that, yeah.
Where they all can feel, that religious energy. They obviously don't. It's just out there. Again, the Great Mother is a different aspect to say, the mistress.
It's part of everything they do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like part of everything they do. All right, so turning to more. I don't want to necessarily say the business part, but like here are some questions. And by the way, I told Corey none of these, and as I never do with any of these interviews, and I wanted to ask questions that honestly I've kind of been saving up and didn't ask you off camera, because I want your honest reaction.
Okay. Looking forward. Maybe looking forward to it. I don't know. Yeah,
no, I know. I think these are good. Okay, so let's go back to January 2023. I have the initial conversation with Toby about, at that time, I didn't even know the term actual play. I was just thinking of it as like, okay, a game that you broadcast to me. It's
a LARP that you broadcast.
How my brain
some dice
worked. And, he had exposed me to some Critical Role. He had subjected me to Critical Role. No, he had exposed me to some Critical Role. And I'd watched
I'd
watched a couple episodes, but it was always like something that I did with Toby, or always something that I did with Dad. My dad, by the way, just like watched, I believe, every single episode of Campaign 2 and all of the episodes up to the point that they were current at Campaign 3 of Critical Role.
Wow.
Just like as Dad does sometimes, including like the Christmas specials and all that stuff.
Any and all content will not go uncovered.
So something I would do with Dad and like that. So at that point, Darkeport was just an intellectual exercise for me. It was fun. The idea, it wasn't even named Darkeport then. It was just the idea of like, how that'd be challenging. How would I have to adapt my, it was a thought experiment.
Right. Yeah.
The moment that came out of my mouth, Corey, you grabbed onto that with both hands, and you're like, okay, great, we're doing this thing. And then
Corey would want to do, yes.
And then project manager Corey just took over, and you became like this force of nature in terms of clearing all obstacles and pulling in the resources and, all of that. So I know what my experience was on that. What did that, so why did you do that? with love and great gratitude, obviously, but like what motivated you to do that, and what did that feel like on your end? Those like very early days. I'm talking like me breaking down in the first meeting with Steve that we had to run in from the rain, and we were not even at anybody's. We were not any place we were supposed to be when we had that meeting, if you remember, all of that. It's a different story. But anyway, yeah, what was your motivation for that? And then what did that feel like from your end?
Well, I think some precursor, like seed planting, was me looking at Twitch, which again is a separate thing, and figuring out if I wanted, during COVID, I was looking at Twitch quite a bit, figuring out if there was some sort of on-stream content that I would want to do and that would make sense, that hasn't been done, that people would enjoy. And I went through several cycles of that, and I watched a lot of different content out there. Everything from literally a psychologist with blessing from the individual doing a session to whatever level on stream while people are watching, which is a little weird, but they were okay with that too. I'm not sure they can.
Wow, you've never told me that before.
I don't even know if they can do that. I'm not even sure that's even under ethical or the policies have changed since then on Twitch. To Nakaru doing the chess and the speed chess and seeing how he's grown his channel. To Call of Duty people and what aspects I liked and didn't like. Like I like the tournament style stuff. That was interesting to me. I did not like watching them just go off, and do their day in and day out, just fighting and for various challenges. That wasn't. But to the LARP, so Jason Carl and I was doing some LARPing stuff on there for a Vampire the Masquerade, LA by Night type of stuff, and so I was exploring that. My whole point is that was already planted, that I was already exploring on how I could potentially move in the space. I remember you
talking about that at the time, yeah.
And I was always itching for some creative stuff around that aspect, and then when you mentioned it. Business Corey, it's almost like getting downloaded like immediately from something that's like, why don't we stream this? Oh wow, I get to build out a awesome game table that I as
so
young
you just had both scheming to build. Yes.
The geek and nerd aspect of our younger selves would be like spewing over whether or not we stream it or not. To really, then the other part of it is, as I've said this before in a couple different fashions, wanting to really help promote individuals and having them be able to actually be known. And so one of the visions, yours is part of Darkeport. We kind of have like three aspects to our overall vision. Yours is better stories make better humans. Mm-hmm. Mine is taking extraordinary people and giving them opportunities. And that's Corey before even this. And this is just enhancing that. And, obviously you were a big part of my decision around that immediately. Is like, let's get Angel out there. Now, I didn't know all the challenges that Angel would provide I knew he was a Luddite, but just getting him used to this and him going through his own self.
Well, I didn't know that I was going to be
able to do it.
I didn't know that I was going to be telling this particular story, to be fair. I thought that I was telling a very different story that was going to be powerful. When Campaign 2 happens, and Campaign 2 is eventually going to happen, I will stand by that story. I think it's a hell of a story. It was not a war story, though. Like, it was not tied up in all those experiences. That has been really hard. It has. That's been really hard.
And there's a slew of other things about you on camera and just kind of just all aspects around how to do, and you do this in your series between going from homebrew to actual play in your GM's journey, and sort of what you're starting to, communicate and explore your mindset around that. And those are all challenges. I wanted to provide opportunity for voice actors, for cast and crew to be able to get known when right now they don't have a stage for it. So that was a big piece of what I wanted to do. I also wanted to return and do some creative stuff myself.
That part I knew. Yeah.
And that part you knew.
Yeah.
And this is not meant to be a profitable, a business that we can do as a lifestyle, but I'm not looking to be the next Critical Role. I want this to where we can sustain ourselves and do well, sure. Grow an audience, stay authentic, don't get corporatized, and really, and I think, and by the way, this is not me, this is kind of our mindset. I'm kind of speaking for all three of us.
Yeah, no,
this is the agreed upon mindset that we want to really maintain the authenticity, and we want to show that gamers can do this. And so I mean, later on this came up, but the educational component that we're looking at doing, whether it's, how to run a business as a creator, to and we're doing this, like, we're giving this information out, and I'm very proud of that we're actually trying to enhance and bolster this medium of content of play.
Okay.
So those are all sort of the things that were going through my mind. And then later on, obviously, having fun, finding all these different people to make it happen was very enjoyable.
That part, no, that was extraordinary. And that, that kind of mid to late, I understood. But that there was, I've known you for a long time, Corey. We've lived together before. I've seen you, when your mom passed away. I mean, like, I've seen you in many different, when Guy passed away. Like, on my end, like, we've seen each other in a whole bunch of different scenarios and situations. We've seen each other at our best. We've seen each other at some really low points too, and all that. I had never seen you just possessed by, like, a drive that way. I'd seen you execute hard on things before. I'm not saying that, but there was just something that got into you at, like, I'm telling you, like, January of 2023, that was just incredible to kind of watch and be a part of. And that was like me at my least, because you also have seen me in many different ways. Like, and like, I'm usually pretty damn analytical, and I'm usually pretty damn pragmatic when it comes to, okay, we have this mission, we need to do these things. But, like, I was in a really vulnerable, not terribly effective space in those first, 2 or 3 months or something.
It is. And we talked about this at a round table, and but one of the bigger things, and I guess it's not a big secret, but it really is, I wanted to do something for you, and I want you to succeed. And you are a gem that hasn't been seen. I wanted to give you the opportunity to have the confidence, to build the confidence for others to see what you can do, and also for others to join in that collaborative aspect. And I did things for Guy. I did things for Val. These are all friends of mine. I like to directly
close friends that we've
volunteer and contribute to helping. A big piece of me is helping people, elevate themselves and find happiness and really get out of. I wouldn't say out of, but really move into a direction that they want to be in, and helping to help that out in whatever way I can. And I did it for a lot of people, and I'm like, oh, this is a window for Angel to do what he loves, what he's really good at. Obviously, there are things that you would, like, top of the line there. There's things, whether voice acting or otherwise, that you're proving, you're learning. But there are definitely things that you can do super well, and I wanted the world to see that.
Oh, thank you.
It's a big one.
Thank you. That has certainly happened, and we are certainly here, my dear. I guess the follow-up to that was, what do you know now that you didn't know in January last year?
We could be here for 2 hours.
I know. That's like, what are the most? So the 3 categories that I had, and again, you can answer any of these or something else about the process of, like, setting up actual play. And I know you did a whole thing on that at Gen Con, but about the process of actual play, about yourself that you didn't know, and also maybe even about gaming that you're experiencing differently now, because none of us had done an actual play before.
No, and I think
that is new.
The first thing, and I mentioned this, and you'll hear it again in my series I do with Business as Creator, is going into business-ish or doing something together, like an on-stream thing with someone that has a lot of aspects to it with your friends, and your dynamic as a friend and doing a homebrew is very different than and we've gone through a lot of. I mean, we've gone through ups and downs. I mean, not in a bad way, but we've gone through some aspects of how to actually operate as business partners.
Hard moments, yeah.
And also reeling it back, going, we've been friends for 16 years. No matter what, this is the core, and let's figure out what's going on here and why there's either tension. And all founders, by the way, will have tension. founders will lean on other founders to be able to lift them up and keep them going. We will all have downs and ups there throughout the process. These are just things we all go through these moments. This is my fourth startup, and that I've started and been part of, and so I've gone through this. But I did not expect. I didn't. Maybe kind of oddly unwise or just naive that I didn't really think about at the time until it started happening that our relationship, and Justin I knew somewhat, but nowhere near as close as you, obviously. Yeah. And Justin and I have certain business mindset alignments that make sense. But you're a creator, and and you've there's
or I play one on television. Yes.
but Angel here has always prioritized freedom over material and money.
Always.
And so that's a challenge. And so by the way, when you actually read Founder's Dilemma, that
which was the book that he gave me. Yes.
And I think you initially did it because you wanted to understand a common language.
Yeah.
And then as you read it, you're like, oh, there actually are some nuggets in here that I'm going to take and use and make a lot of sense. And so it's important for us all to have a common language as founders and as even as a cast and crew and as a troupe.
That absolutely helped. That helped a lot. Even when I didn't agree with every piece of the analysis in that book, what it gave me was a framework.
Yeah.
And it gave me like, okay, these are the kinds of things, at least, that Corey is looking at strategically.
So when I talk about handcuffs, you're like, I know what these mean.
Right, golden handcuffs or whatever.
Family handcuffs type of thing.
Yeah, which, actually is the thing.
It is.
In Darkeport, that very phenomenon is the thing.
It is. And that it leads to how founders can contribute and expectations and how we can work through that because we respect and love each other's talents, but we also want to make sure we're on the same page.
So there are two things I was not going to say this on tape. This was not written down, but I just want to get this out there to have it memorialized. I really do hope that you find whatever way it manifests, that you find a way to bring your wealth of knowledge into the, I don't even know if the actual play community, but like into gaming spaces so that is in circulation. I mean, it was a good start in Gen Con, but like, I feel like I would like to see gamers who want to step into whatever that business looks like.
Yeah.
Running a shop or doing an actual play stream or, whatever it is, like have the tools to be able to do that effectively.
And I'm trying to figure out the format. I'm going through some YouTube videos. I'm thinking about some TikTok stuff. I'm also thinking of just live chat where people can ask questions because that's usually a big thing. I got a lot of good feedback at Gen Con around what I did, but it was very broad. And then they want to get more deep in these subjects. So I'm trying to figure out the format that makes sense, that people are interested in and that will consume and make sense for them.
Unfortunately, when you gave your presentation, I was giving a presentation, or no, I was running a table and then gave a presentation right after, so I couldn't be there, which I wanted to. I wanted to read the room. I wanted to see what that felt like. Obviously, I wanted to hear what you had to say. But like, that was exciting. It's exciting to me because that was the first time that I had seen where someone with your depth of experience in this arena came into another area of life and presented it, in the same way, by the way, that I really hope that I really want Justin to take his expertise. I mean, he'll say he doesn't have a background in sound and blah, 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 but like he's brilliant with these things. And we've now been at this for, we're going, I mean, total, we're actually coming up on 2 years.
I think as far as studio setting, I talked about this with him the other day. I think definitely he has.
Yeah.
Now, as far as like multiple locations and stuff, okay, all right.
It's specialized. No, I'll grant it's specialized, and I don't want to I hope that doesn't doesn't sound like dismissive. I mean exactly the opposite. I've been amazed at what he's been able to do with relatively very little, actually.
He can drink, he drinks it, absorbs it so
quickly.
His DNA allows him to.
Very quick.
Yeah, it's freaking.
I'm hoping that some of those insights and some of those strategies, like his philosophy of reducing the variables whenever possible, when you're doing production, like that can get out into the mainstream and that can circulate out. It's one thing to enjoy a story. Obviously, I want to make entertaining stories. Obviously, I want to move people. But to me, there's a whole other world there of benefit that we can bring.
Yeah, I mean, we're only so much we can only produce so much as a group. How can we enable or help other people produce as well, and basically uplift, everything in the industry and in the actual play genre?
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
And I would just, again, I don't want starving artists. I want them to. I think business and finance, even in middle school and high school, it's a big stickler with me. We don't teach them.
It should be taught.
Finance.
Yeah. That's a whole discussion.
And
it should be taught.
That's going to help people get out of working the 9 to 5 and really figure out how they, with their great content, in whatever way possible. Now, of course, they have to have content that people want and demand, but assuming they have that, how can they actually make that into a lifestyle business where they can just do that? And so whether it's creating a tabletop game, like we talked to at Gen Con, to a live stream, to a podcast, they all had really good questions. Mm-hmm. And they were all very interested about how to create a company and do equity, and how do I expand from like one show to other aspects. And so they had a lot of business oriented questions. It was really good to like, oh my God, you have 20 hats, Corey. How are there ones more important than others? And we went through that process, and I discussed a little bit about how to think about that. And by the way, none of this is like day one. Some stuff from my experience I was able to lay out initially, but then it grew like a living, breathing aspect. Like I had no idea what do we need for an intro, at all.
Whew, yeah.
And that became a 4-month project that I eventually had to take over.
One day, you and I will need to sit down, and we just need to tell that whole miserable story from begin. We have a beautiful introduction. I love my introduction. Sometimes I still watch it and listen to it, even to this day, just to kind of get hyped and inspired and reconnect with Darkeport. I do not want to ever go through that again.
Neither do I.
That was a whole thing. And Anthony, if you ever see this, thank God for you, sir. We had a man who stepped up and did like 3 different things simultaneously.
10 days. Yeah, 20 illustrations in 10 days.
In 10 days. It was insane by hand. Well, I guess that kind of brings me to where I wanted to end this interview. Where do you see... So we're in the actual play space now. Mm-hmm. I know that you can't help yourself but analyze whatever business spaces you're in, and this is a creative space. This is also a kind of business. Honestly, I don't even. That's not even like exactly the right word for it. But
we want the Troupe to self-sustain so that we can continue to do this.
But there's the No, right. There is a. I mean, there's just you're keeping the lights on. You have to, or you don't get to play. Where do you see the actual play, as in, if you want to call it an industry or however you want to define that, where do you see that going? I look at it as an art form, and I can speak to that piece. Where do you see it going in like the next decade, 15 years?
This is a really good question.
Yeah.
If I knew that, I'd probably make a lot of money doing other things. Could predict the lottery, all sorts of stuff as an oracle.
Because it's changing, Corey.
It is.
It's really, I mean, it's really in motion right now. And it's one of the most exciting things to me about doing this is that I get to participate. All of us, you, me, and Justin, we're basically the same age, and we're like the generation ahead of the kids who are coming in now and are making these incredible stories. And they're doing it in a way that just was not possible when you and I first started gaming. It just wasn't. So anyway,
it's almost like democratizing film and script writing.
Sure.
In a collaborative format. So you have all these different groups, and how can we provide? So I see a lot of people wanting to do this. I see obviously the big boys, production houses, maybe not necessarily wanting all of it, and so there might be some friction or indirect vampiring around that, I call it, to not have that happen. You have unions and actor guilds and all sorts of stuff. Critical Role got impacted by it, but certain people did not. If you look at Dimension 20, they're spreading out into all sorts of spaces. I really think the idea of entrepreneurship and people doing on-stream content is only going to grow. I think people rather, at least the mindset I've seen so far for at least certain demographic age groups is I don't want to work a corporate 9 to 5. I want to do my own thing. And it doesn't have to be gaming and role. It could be other things, their own company, their own ideas. But they want to own things. They want to be responsible with a vision. And that's incredible. And so I see the actual play and the GMs doing that. But we got to educate and make sure everyone shares the education. So it's not us, but whether it's Constructed Chaos or sister company, to the Rainbow guys, to the Dungeon Dudes, how can we collaborate so that we can make everyone better? And then this content can be used, hopefully in the future, to be turned into anime, comic books, these sort of things, different series.
So you see it branching out. You see it really, really branching out then.
Definitely there. And another big space, and I just talked to someone today about this, is ability to help new game systems get marketed. And so if you can pair up with a game system and do an actual play on it, you're actually demonstrating the rules and how fun it is and the aspects of that game system and the world all together in a visual, audible format. And so they're getting a lot out of you through a marketing perspective and a support perspective to actually work with you on that. So I see a lot of potential actual plays working with game system companies, whether formally or informally, to help get the message out.
Okay, no, that's I think that's a very, very well said. I'm all for that. I would love to see it flower. I'd love to see all these different
or it could be a passing fad and
or it could just die. Well,
it could be Cabbage Patch dolls and bye-bye.
Come on, now you're really dating us.
Or it could be Magic the Gathering and consider it and still be
and endure quite.
And then you have other collectible card games going on now.
Do you think that what we have here? Do you think that do you think this is a dying breed, where you have like as far as actual play goes, where you have a grand, setup?
Good question. I've had thoughts around this recently. So we have...
Or do you think this is always going to be like an enduring flagship part of the activity, no matter what happens?
For the player base, it's always better to be in a physical space.
I agree 100%.
But from a flexibility and cast and talent, there are arguments to be made about having virtual people come together in a really nice production format. Mm-hmm. But then you have things like controlling sound and quality across people's rooms. So how do you make that happen? And so there's things around that. But and then you have the beast that's looking at turning this all into a big virtual tabletop. And then if they can offer this virtual, capability to host your own games and live stream that, I don't know. I don't want to say this, but I was talking the other day about Wizard Coast really taking their virtual tabletop stuff they're doing, which again, I'm not a big fan of doing that aspect to it, kind of trying to turn it into a money-making machine, but then offering the capabilities to allow a really good streaming virtual group where GMs can come together and then have casts of players and produce actual play content on their platform, with their game system, with their VTT, with their books. You see where this is going, and they're sort of
I do.
This is like Apple, but in the game actual play system.
That could definitely be. That could definitely.
And that has some worries there, but
sure. So for a plethora of reasons, I don't think I have to explain to anybody watching this. I make a point of not getting into like real world politics. There are a gazillion different places to go for that if you want to.
Yeah.
If you want to, I feel compelled to say though, one of my reluctances with what you're describing is that, and it would have many upsides to it, is I don't know after, frankly, this last 2 years of. I'll be political and I'll say WotC has not covered itself in glory in terms of the gaming community and the levels of trust that you need for that sort of thing, the levels of good faith, of operating in good faith that you need on, all of that. And I wonder if like that has potentially poisoned the well, at least for a while. Until things circulate out and you have a better feel there. I don't know.
I don't know.
As far as like virtual, like a huge virtual play kind of shift.
But the paid DM thing, right, has been a thing for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years now, right?
It has.
And so if they can
for
quote,
a while.
organize all those cats onto a platform that they can have all these resources at a I hate to say where's a better price point, but have access to all these things at a much easier way for them to be able to produce a quality experience.
WotC, you're saying, if they can,
or anyone,
okay.
or for that matter,
Well, maybe
it doesn't have to be WotC. The question is that a direction that people want to go in, which is I join a really cool game master and he has a really cool VTT, and by the way, all those assets that these guys curate might be shareable across GM, so it helps reduce.
That would be really cool.
A lot of that rework. So essentially, getting where now we have is a lot of siloed, like back in the 80s, very siloed and hidden D&D games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to where we can have transparency, where we hopefully can share some assets and enable everyone to produce really good content in games without having to spend lots of money individually on everything. Now, physical minis, maps. So if right. I might be able to convince Angel if we had all these assets that were built out that he could configure and use for his world, that maybe that's better than building out physical assets. I don't know if I could.
There's been some. I mean, there's been some. I don't know if that is what I would be running, but I think that there is a world where, like for example, Darkeport has some sort of virtual presence. You know, like if I found the right person who I felt really. The right storyteller,
right.
Who I felt just really thrived in that space, and really was like a native to it, understood it, had great flow with it, all of that. I would seriously consider it. Then you have to now.
I mean, there's limits to talent and GMs in Austin that can come to our physical studio.
Yeah.
So that is ideally what we would like, but we also are looking at potentially, right, at maybe a virtual good GM from wherever, and maybe that could be on our channel. That could be part of what we're doing. We don't know yet. But
that'd be exciting. I mean, that kind of thing that would be exciting.
Yeah. It'd be great.
Oh, Corey. Here we are then, my dear. Just, onward and upward, yeah?
Yeah, definitely onward, upward. And I would love any ideas or feedback people have about what medium they would prefer for me to be able to disseminate answering questions or aspects around production, like the business side of starting and running and also, producing this whole thing.
Also production.
Yeah.
I would say also production, because that's like it goes hand in. I mean, just that you have to have it. It's, the backbone basically of actual play.
Like we created these solid ones. I think for the next ones we're going to be doing the silk screen format that a lot of people are doing around the socks, around the metal, and that way we can change these things in and out very quickly.
Don't listen to him, baby.
and by the way, there's space up top there to be able to just put this over briefly and then remove it.
You could. There's
now these are pieces of artwork. So, and Olivia did a wonderful job, and whether or not
she really did,
and it could have been. I mean, we talked about green screen, really and there's a lot of reasons why we didn't do green screen. And, we did do an interchangeable logo, so other GMs and content could come here and use this. So there's a lot of foresight. And someone told me recently, actually on Balance Encounters, their head said, y'all had intent with.
We did have.
You had a lot of intent on how you right, versus a lot of people run into this. They do a great podcast, a stream, and people like it, and then they're trying to work backwards to architect. Well, how do we scale this, or how do we manage this, and how do we make this work? So we had the intent. Maybe part of it is just building companies initially, but also I think Angel had intent, obviously, and Angel always has intent around his world settings and building. And Justin
in that way, yeah.
Justin had an antenna like, I want to be able to do these sort of views and switches, and I want music and sound and how all that fits together.
Justin is the crazy perfectionist who will make himself insane until he will squeeze that last 2% out of something. I've seen it, and I'm kind of in awe of what he's been able to do. The last thing I'll say on that is, I think that our sound quality is as good even as like some of the big dogs.
Oh yeah, and in some cases better depending on who you're talking to.
And I'm biased, but like I love our lighting and our backdrop and all of that.
No, I did a comparison at Gen Con of various things, and we tend to. This is evidential. We pop out of the background versus fade into it, and people commented on that.
Well, all right. I don't want to break our arm patting our back, so I will end it there. Thank you thank you so much, faraway friends, for spending time with us. Really appreciate you so much and your intent and your care and your grace. Please give us some feedback on this. Say what was helpful, what was not. I have a hide like a rhino, so really, if we were too self-indulgent, let us know as well. Take care of yourselves as you're on your journey out there. Stay safe and stay curious. Valet. Bye.
Bye, guys.